Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Isyraf bin Muhammad Ali, Matric number 1813947. And now I'll present about Ibn Khaldun, the science of speculative theology. Based on the book that I researched about the book is Muqaddimah by Ibn Khaldun. Science of speculative theology was being described as a science which involves arguing with logical evidence in defense of the articles of faith in Islam from innovators and heretics. The local argumentations which relates to the oneness of God and the development of speculative theology was being discussed. All beings in the world requires causes which are prior to their origin and follows until they reach to the cause of cause, God who creates them into existence. The intellects become puzzled in attempt to understand because only a comprehensive knowledge can elaborate them all, since no one is able to know the beginnings or order of matter pertaining to the soul which God puts consecutive notions in human. As a result, they can only comprehend the cause that are natural because to know the matters beyond nature requires higher level of intellect than the soul. Prophet Muhammad SAW forbade us to speculate about the cause and must completely abandon any speculations. As it results, the mind becomes lost and gets nowhere, nor gains any real vision, so that the soul will be colored by the oneness of God. Man should be suspicious in their of their senses, which cannot comprehend all existing things, as it may cause the mind to be voided beyond sensual perception. It can be achieved by avoiding their mind from thinking about supernatural matters, as it is limited only for the lawgiver, which is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which his perception is higher than the other being. It is clear the intellect will cut off the wilderness of guesses and recognize the oneness of God, the cause of all being, by freeing their hearts and submit to Him. For the next slide, there is difference between state and knowledge in questions of dogma is the same as that between talking about attributes and having it. The relationship of man's knowledge with the oneness of God to his possession of it is as an attribute. To acquire knowledge which is useful in the other world is to possess of an attribute, not by relying on knowledge but to practice it numerous times. Perfection in the matters of belief depends on the other knowledge, that which results from possessions of these matters as an attribute, thus resulting into true knowledge, that acquisition of habit firmly rooted in the soul, from which necessary knowledge results for the soul. This shows that faith have several degrees by measuring from the above matters. The first one is the affirmation by the heart of what the tongue says. The highest one is a belief of the heart and resulting actions of a quality that has complete control over the intention and leads all actions by faith. It comes second after infallibility because it is a primary necessities to prophets. Affirmation exists in all degrees of faith as it absolves from the responsibility of unbelief and is the distinguishing element between unbeliever and believer, which admits no differences regarding to the perfect faith. The first degree of faith has been described by the lawgiver Nabi Muhammad SAW is to believe in God, angels, His scriptures, and the last day, and believe in predestination, either good or bad. These are the articles of faith as established in the science of speculative theology. Next slide. Many verses of the Quran, God is described as absolutely devoid of human attributes clearly. Then there are few verses suggesting anthropomorphism, which refers to either the essence or the attribute of God. The early Muslims gave preference to the evidence for God's freedom from human traits as it was ample and clear. They believed it as the words of God verses and never interpreted it, or there may be a temptation. Unfortunately, there were also a few innovators in their time interpreted these verses and delved into anthropomorphism. They believe God have hands, feet, and a face, which is opposing the idea of He is devoid of human attributes, resulting to the features of imperfection towards Him. It is more proper to use the first method by clinging to its meaning and try to combine with the help of interpretation. Besides, these innovators try to escape from the anthropomorphic abomination by by assuming the attributes of God such as voice, sounds, and direction same as humans. The refutation here is the same as the former case. We're supposed to believe in the statements expressed by the early Muslims as they stand, so the disavowal of the meaning will not be happening. Examples of the early Muslims works are Risalah of Ibn Abi Zaid and in his Mukhtasar and the books of the Hadith expert Ibn Abdul Bar. The next slides. As time goes, uh, the science, the science and crafts increase. At that juncture, the Mu'tazila extended to the subject to the ambiguous verses and denied God's possession of the ideal attributes of knowledge, power, volition, and life in addition to deny their consequences. This was being refuted by the assumption that is neither identical with the divine essence nor different from it. They even discussed to deny God's attribute of volition, thus resulting into the denial of predestination as it relies on each other. The Mu'tazila also denied God, hearing, and vision as these two are corporeal accidents. It was being it was being refuted as the words does not need of corporeal shape, but merely the perception of audible and visible things. Furthermore, they decide that Quran was a creation and it leads to the indoctrination towards certain caliphs, which resulted into the permission from the Muslim leaders to flog and kill them, opening the path for Orthodox people to defend the articles of faith with logical approach and to refute the innovators. The leader of the speculative theologians, Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari, disapproved of the innovators by mediating into different approaches. His works include restricting God's freedom from human attributes, recognizing God's attribute with traditional and logical methods, discuss about God's concern for human welfare and what is good and bad for them, and also perfected the dogmas pertaining to the rising of the dead, paradise and hell, and reward so as punishment. He also added about imamate, as the Shia suggested. It is one of the articles of faith, and it was the duty of the Prophet and the Muslim nation to free the imams from any responsibilities in this respect.